and slash action video games were kind of a common genre throughout the PlayStation 2 and into Xbox 360 PS3 era, but over the past decade, the games industry has kind of stepped away from this, with minimal games in this genre releasing, and more so, the popular action-based genre nowadays is absolutely Soulslike. For a while there, we ended up losing out on real-time action games that are incredibly fast-paced with hit counters on the left side of the screen, over-the-top action sequences, and moveset input lists as complex as a fighting game. The 6th and 7th generation of consoles had so many great games within this genre, or at least slightly tapped into this genre, like God of War, Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden, Castlevania, Nano Breaker, Onimusha, Shinobi, Legacy of Kain, Dynasty Warriors, Star Wars Force Unleashed, Nightshade, Bayonetta, Dante's Inferno, Darksiders. There were so many great action hack and slash games that released throughout this era. And these games also catered towards gamers of all experience. If you're looking for an easy breezy button masher, then most of these games played on the easiest difficulty are going to be a pretty sweet and easy time. However, if you are looking for a challenge, cranking a lot of these games up to the hardest difficulty, for example the Ninja Gaiden games, you're going to get your ass slapped purple. However, over the past few years, it would seem that the games industry is going through a bit of a resurgence of making old video game genres relevant again. I mean, 2024 gave us Astrobot, which ended up winning Game of the Year. For a video game to win Game of the Year that is a platformer in 2024 is pure insanity, but we are so here for it. The return of character-focused action hack and slash games, though, personally gets me the most excited. 2024 had 5 notable games that released within this genre, or at the very least took inspiration from it. Obviously, the biggest one here is Black Myth Wukong. While this game certainly does have Souls-like elements to it, it is more so leaning in the direction of a traditional action game. And this is one of the most successful games of last year. It generated over 20 million units within its first month and 10 million units within the first 3 days. Also coming from a development studio who hadn't previously developed a console title. This has quickly become one of China's most successful video game releases of all time, and has even encouraged the Chinese government to start investing into video game development to generate more video games coming out of China. Stellar Blade was also another notable game that released last year, coming from Korean developer Shiftbound. Like Black Myth Wukong, it's another case of taking Souls-like elements, though this game, while at first does appear to be more Souls-like than action hack and slash, as the game progresses, it very much then leans more towards traditional action, and absolutely starts to become quite reminiscent of those old school action games. While this game certainly wasn't as successful as Black Myth Wukong, it definitely was profitable for Shiftbound. We also had Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Gory Cuddly Carnage, and Zenless Zone Zero, with all 3 of these games leaning into real-time, fast-paced action hack and slash. But in 2025, we're seeing even more of these kinds of games coming through. There is a total of 6 here, which is absolutely huge, and definitely tells me that devs are starting to take a second look at this genre and see that, hey, people still care about it, let's make games like this. Hands down, my most anticipated game releasing this year in this genre is absolutely Lost Soul Aside, a game that we've been waiting for since 2016. The core inspirations behind this game are both Devil May Cry and Final Fantasy 15. We've received a lot of footage of this game over the years. I mean, it's taken almost a decade for it to release, and from what we can see, it absolutely appears as if it is a very fast-paced game like Devil May Cry. The Devil May Cry influence is just incredibly obvious. Though, of course, at the same time, we've then got that Final Fantasy type aesthetic going on. It's sort of almost bringing the two together. And hey, even the Devil May Cry style rank mechanic is here. I truly hope this game turns out to be good just because of how long we've been waiting for it. It is coming from a first-time studio, sort of similar to Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade. This is going to be their very first AAA video game, and just video game in general. A couple of weeks ago, we saw the return of Dynasty Warriors, the first new game since 2018, Dynasty Warriors Origins, and this is a pretty triumphant return as this is now the highest rated game across the entire franchise. And while I can't speak from personal experience as this is still on the to-do list, a lot are saying that this is one of the best Dynasty Warrior games that Koei Tecmo have put out. This is great to see because the Warriors games are incredibly niche in the sense that they are sort of almost in a genre of their own. Big, large-scale battles with real-time action combat. While it definitely does take ideas from action hack and slash, this is sort of its own thing, and it's great to see that it still, in 2025, is a successful game to pursue. Koei Tecmo also brought back another beloved IP of theirs, Ninja Gaiden, with revealing both Ninja Gaiden 2 Black and Ninja Gaiden 4 to release later on this year. So starting with Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, this is a UE5 remake of the second game. However, it is still technically the second game as it's running on that old engine, just with a layer of UE5 visuals on top. The Ninja Gaiden reveal sort of came out of completely nowhere. I think a lot of people were convinced that this was a graveyard IP to not only get Ninja Gaiden 4, wow that's huge, it's been beyond 10 years since 3, but also on the same day of the announcement, a remake of the second game is some pretty crazy stuff. Ninja Gaiden is regarded as one of the best in amongst DMC3 hack and slash games there is on offer, and it's also regarded as one of the tougher ones. Some even say that Ninja Gaiden is one of the very first Souls-like games in regards to its difficulty. Ninja Gaiden 4 though is a huge deal, a proper true return to the franchise, but also because it's being co-developed by action game specialists Platinum Games. Platinum Games have been quiet for a little while, and they haven't exactly been receiving the best news, with some believing that the studio could potentially be seeing a closure. But I guess, over the past few years, this is what they've been working on. And while Team Ninja are on board to develop Ninja Gaiden 4, if you're going to entrust any other development studio to help bring this franchise back into relevancy, what better way than to get Platinum Games on board, considering their expertise in this exact genre. Another game that's been making some absolute waves is Phantom Blade Zero. Now, this isn't concreted for 2025, but developer S-Game are hoping to get the game out by the end of the year. Though this could change, and we could see this for an early 2026 release. Now, most people were thinking when this game first got revealed not too long back, oh shit, we have yet another Japanese-themed Souls-like. It looks gorgeous, but yeah, the attention is going to kind of dwindle if it's another Souls-like. And S-Game immediately followed up by saying, this isn't a Souls-like at all. This is very much a fast-paced action game like the ones you used to play back in the day, which I think absolutely helped retain attention on Phantom Blade Zero, because I know my interest in this increased tenfold when we got that good news. Now, this is coming from another Chinese developer known as S-Game. They've released a few games over the course of time, but this would be their very first big AAA game. And the game is looking crazy promising. There seems to be this trend going on at the moment where Asian development studios are just popping out of nowhere, or there are these studios that have existed for a while, but no one knows who they are, but they randomly start promoting this really cool-ass looking video game. I love it. The Asian video games industry is starting to make some insane waves and finally a name for themselves. I believe that over the next coming decade, throughout the 2020s, this is going to be the big Asian video game market takeover, which is honestly nothing but a good thing because these guys are consistently pumping out sick-ass video games, and video games that are very reminiscent of what we used to experience throughout the PS2, Xbox 360 era. The last game to look forward to for this year is the first Berserker Kazan. The demo for this recently released, and I had an absolute blast. I initially thought that this game was just a true and tried fast-paced hack and slash, but in fact, it actually leans more towards Souls-like than it does hack and slash. That being said though, This game, out of the numerous amount of different Souls-likes that I've personally experienced, leans more towards the easier end of the spectrum, and oftentimes feels very reminiscent of a traditional action game. In my opinion, when you look at Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade, those are like 75% action hack and slash and 25% Souls-like, whereas Kazan here is more so 60% Souls-like, 40% action hack and slash. I mentioned this in my first impressions video for the first Berserker, but if you are someone who generally doesn't enjoy Souls-like because of the difficulty curve, well, I urge you to take a second look at the first Berserker. I think that this game could very well be that one exception to the Souls-like genre. Now, there's one more game that I have to mention. Though it's not releasing this year, rather it's releasing next year, and by the time of release, it will have been 20 years since the last game. That is Onimusha Way of the Sword. I shat cement mix when this game got revealed at the Game Awards last year. Hands down for me, the best, most hype announcement out of the entire show. Capcom have been doing a stellar job of bringing back their old titles, and Onimusha is definitely one that a lot of people were convinced, yes, this is dead. Like, Capcom are never going to return to this. This is like 6 feet deep. It is under. It was a surprise to even see that we got a Netflix anime adaptation of Onimusha. That was really strange, but to get a proper video game follow-up 20 years after Onimusha 4 is pure insanity. Also because a little while ago, Capcom were retesting the waters for interest surrounding Onimusha with re-releasing the first game, which, yeah, sales on that were abysmal. Though, going back to the earlier Onimusha games is incredibly hard due to the old school fixed camera angles like you come across in the old Resident Evil games. From what we know about this game, it is not Souls-like and will follow in the path of a traditional action game, so sort of similar to how Onimusha 4 is presented. Details on this game are incredibly vague for the time being, but we are set to learn more about the game throughout 2025. So it's absolutely apparent that this genre of video game is making a strong comeback. We can only hope that the games that are set to release throughout this year that are positioned within this genre hopefully turn out to be successful, convincing more developers around the world to develop further video games that revolve around action hack and slash. I hope this video has been helpful to provide a little bit of insight towards what's going on for this genre of video game. Let me know in the comment section down below, what 2025 action games are you most looking forward to? However guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Slap that like button if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything going on here. As always, a big thank you to my wonderful patrons. I hope you're all having a fantastic day and we'll talk again real soon.